I'm definitely. I would kill it instantly. You as a viewer or you as a player or coach, you have never waited on the casters or the analyst desk. That's never the reason for delay.
But we were in lobby already before, for example, Medic and Varios had the word, and then we are all waiting in lobby, and then we just see Medi, and that's really triggering.
But that will not. Okay, I get.
It's happened more than once.
More than once, right?
More than once.
We're like all stopped there.
You're trying to get
we're just there like face palming.
Can we start the game? And then we just see like lights and the Medi, audience, go with us, Medi.
Welcome to episode. Camera's there. There we go. Welcome to episode. Now it's hard.
Yeah. Get some coffee,
Guys,
Martin,
you ready?
please.
Guys, come on. Let's focus. Welcome to episode 5 of the podcast with the greatest name in esports. It is also the only thing we're currently winning at, I assume, right now, seeing as our guests, at least our regular guest, has been struggling with a lot of things during Worlds, mainly predictions. And obviously we have brought back the first guest we had here. It is Alfonso. And it seems special that we can bring pro gamers onto our podcast. But they kind of have to be here. They're kind of forced to be in here. So it's not even because the show is like, a high tier show or something. And then we can get all the big names. No, he just has to be here. But he's excited to be here, right?
Of course, yeah, definitely.
Yes. This is a big thing for you because Alfonso just returned from being on the analyst desk.
Where he predicted differently than here.
Well, he did predict differently, but he was on the analyst desk. It was Sunday, so last day of groups. It was the Team Liquid group. How was the experience on the analyst desk?
I was actually a little bit nervous at the start.
Why?
I just kind of like when you go there, you're like, okay, I'm going to be talking in front of a lot of people, So you kind of, I had that thought for a while and I was like, okay, shit, hopefully I don't screw it up. I was also not like super prepared in terms of like how the teams have been doing and so on. I didn't have it all under control. So I was a bit nervous, but it turned out fine, I think. I mean, I didn't really look back into it and see if I did a good job or not.
Oh, you didn't go back and review
I just assume I did a great job.
I can definitely say you had less super in-depth Mithy answers compared to like doing a season when you're actively playing yourself and you're like, in the grind where you notice all the small details. And there was a little bit more bigger picture answers on some of the things.
Well, the thing is, it felt like we were like really time limited, and just the way the whole thing went was like, it felt like that we didn't even analyze like some of the games. It was like a pre-game instead of like a post-game.
Sometimes, yeah.
And then the post-game ones were also, it didn't really feel like there was a lot of things that I could bring up to, but I also maybe think that it was just like not being used to it and not knowing how much room of freedom I have. And I also even though the analyst I was with, it was very easy to work with, but I wasn't really getting like when I was doing it with you or with Mitch, it felt like or even with Dracos, it felt like I could bring more stuff up, and I had like a lot more freedom back in the EU analyst desk. So.
It's definitely always very interesting when you do. So it's a large analyst desk, right? You have a host, you have 3 people there with the host. So there's a lot of people who want to get in. People don't notice it very often because typically you don't do it when the camera shows the entire table, but when it's like on a single shot, there'll be like 2 or 3 people who want to like do this, to be like, oh, I have something to say after this, and the host will like, kind of direct it over there. And also when you do analyst desk in a venue and not at the LEC desk, as an example, where you're sitting down, it's a little bit more relaxed. Typically there you can find more replays and go a little bit more in depth. Where in big venues, I always find it gets harder to dive into specific topics, and you end up going a little bit more broad.
Yeah, it also felt like, like you said, if so, Shocks would start with something, and then it would just like go in a line, and everyone just like said something, and it was just like given that after this guy comes this guy, this guy. So for me, it was just like, I was just following up on the conversation.
And you were placed all the way in the back, of course, all the way to the side.
Yeah, but still, like that was okay with me. It's not really about that. It's just the way that the flow of the things weren't. It was harder to actually dive into things. It's
actually like there's a lot of things with the analyst desk that are harder than casting because you have very limited time. Like in a cast. We will include you soon, Andre. Don't worry.
Yeah, but, I'm just chilling.
To broadcasters, right? I mean, you've been on broadcast as well. Like you've done a few different things on broadcast, right?
Yeah, you have.
You've done analyst desk.
I've seen you there.
Yeah, you definitely done. You did a great job. I remember back when Giants qualified and you did. But typically, like when you cast, you have the entire game for just you and either one or two other people. So whatever you want to talk about, you have time to get it in there, and you can pick different moments to talk about it. You can wait for it to happen or not happen and say, ooh, I would have loved to see this instead or whatever. But on the analyst desk, typically it's like limited amount of time because you got to go to the next game. So if you go too long, then you have like everyone is spamming, go next game, right? So you never wait for the casters. And then you have more people and everyone has watched the game and they've gathered a lot of thoughts. They're like, I want to talk about this and this and this. Then Alfonso starts talking about one thing. I'm like, oh, I really want to talk about this other thing. Come on, Alfonso, let's go.
I mean, I honestly didn't like it. Like, maybe best of 5 format is different. I just didn't like the analyst desk at all.
Best of 5 is a lot more, like, it's a lot easier and a lot more fun in a lot of ways because you stick to one series and there's like a progression.
And also, there's too many people in the desk, so like it becomes like a big conversation rather than points being made like an analyst desk. Really, it feels more like a let's talk about something desk. Entertaining people until the next game comes on desk rather than actually an analyst desk. That's how it feels to me. and pretty much that. Like I also want to point out that the casters were actually really good. So it was like basically half of the points that we could take.
They already said that.
The casters had already said that on the.
So there wasn't.
You know what's weird?
Yeah.
Is that now I can see Mithy on both ends because I remember every time that we go on stage and the referee says you guys need to go on lobby, and after that he says actually new information from broadcast. There were some delays, so you guys have to wait 2 more minutes, and we are all fucking analyst desk.
Never
this analyst desk like takes so long, unbelievable. And now we're like so short amount of time.
Yeah.
Can't believe it. So it's
I'm
like
definitely.
just the two
I would kill it instantly. You as a viewer or you as a player or coach, you have never waited on the casters or the analyst desk. That's never the reason for delay.
But we were in lobby already when before, for example, Medic and Verios had the word, and then we are all waiting in lobby, and then we just see Medi, and that's really triggering.
But that will not. Okay, I get.
It's happened more than
once. More than once. We're like all stopped there.
You're trying to get.
We're just there like face palming.
Can we start the game? And then we just see like lights and the Medi, audience, go with us, Medi.
Okay, I can see how you're in the zone and that happens and you think it. That's fair. That's fair. So I guess feedback to Verius and Medic.
I mean, it's really funny that they do it, like
it's
I'm
great.
all down to that, but when you're in the zone and then you
see how your eye
and you're like, oh,
because you as the support, you sit closer to the analyst desk.
I hear them even.
Yeah, you can barely
even hear them.
You can literally
especially after the ref said, guys, just wait for the broadcast.
No, first they tell you like, guys, you have to join lobby right now, and then it's like, oh no, guys, we have to wait 3 minutes for the broadcast. And you're just sitting in lobby like, nice, and then you just like you don't have anything to do, and you just see Mithy and Guilhoto there like.
Yeah, that's true. I wonder what the players on stage noticed or felt when we did the Trevor ass slap. Because I imagine that as a player, you're sitting on stage, you're in the moment, you're getting ready, you're getting told, game starting, and you just see out of your eye, smack on the caster desk.
Who was?
If that gets you out of the zone, I don't remember. I just remember getting slapped. I do not remember what happened after. Kind of everything just blacked out for like a few hours.
Yeah, but that's definitely a thing.
That probably would get someone really motivated for the game or get them completely out of the zone. I'm actually not sure, but enough, I guess, about.
I guess you could get motivated. Yeah.
Broadcast and all this kind of stuff. Alfonso, you're not on. Obviously, you basically got fired after the one day you did. Like I don't assume you've been invited back, at least.
Jesus.
No, it was a fast fire.
Yeah, they were like,
Yeah.
nah, out.
Yeah.
I guess you're also fired, Martin,
That's
after your last Worlds.
yeah, we'll see. I didn't get to do obviously the final last time, or the finals broadcast, because we had to go back here and actually started building the team and everything, which led to.
But in that
everything that's
case, it was
happened this year.
professional. Stopped you from doing that. Not that you got fired.
True, I fired myself.
Yeah, of course.
I fired myself, basically. Today's topics, as you can probably guess from the first couple of minutes, we don't have any other than one. So I actually have a piece of paper with today's topic. You can't see it properly, but there's one line up here, and it says quarterfinal. That's actually all we want to talk about, outside of all the stuff we just had here. 4 quarterfinals, 2 each day.
Yeah.
Starts obviously Saturday with 2 of them. The first one is the Griffin game versus IG. And then obviously we have FPX versus Fnatic on the same day, so that's on Saturday, and then on Sunday we will have SKT versus Splyce and Damwon Gaming versus G2 Esports. My first question and kind of my first opinion on this is the most stacked playoffs we have ever had at Worlds. Thoughts?
I don't know if it's like the most stacked, where the level is higher, but I think that definitely is where the level is closer between the teams.
Okay. Alfonso, what do you think?
I'm trying to think, but I mean,
You're thinking about the slap now.
I feel like
aren't you?
I mean, I don't know if that's like a good statement to say, based on, you know, I'm pretty sure like other world years have also been like quite intense. I
Sure,
assume.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I assume I have to like look back, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
But maybe, yeah. But I'm like, there's really high level League of Legends, you know. So it's a hype quarterfinal, but you know, I wouldn't go with that statement. I guess
I mean,
haven't really gave it too much thought, so I would.
Sure, yeah. That's a good.
The reason why I
question,
think
right?
that it's closer to is just because we go into this quarterfinals where, obviously, whoever gets Splyce gets an easy quarterfinals in theory, but all the others are just really close, and I just can't remember a Worlds where you go into quarterfinals and you say, wow, all of these quarterfinals except one are like really close. You usually go that on the semifinals where it's like
Exactly. Yeah.
Jesus. But even if you look at last Worlds, like you actually had a semifinals, right, where you go and say, this semifinal, this Fnatic
C9, you know, as a semifinal last. I remember people when they looked at the bracket last year, and it was C9 versus Africa. That was one of them.
Yeah.
It was Fnatic versus which Chinese team was that? Fnatic versus who was the worst last year? It was IG. It was RNG.
Yeah.
Who was the third seed from China or the other seed from China?
Were the leads maybe?
It might have been WE. Anyway, I don't remember at this point. But I remember looking at quarterfinals last year and feeling like, okay, I was EDG. It was EDG,
Yeah, EDG.
obviously. I was like, okay, Fnatic EDG, Fnatic's going to win that.
Yeah, you say that now.
I mean, it was with a prediction back then, probably. Go find it, you know?
Okay.
C9 Africa, we thought Africa would win that, right? But on paper, it didn't look super close, / like, to me at
G2
least,
RNG.
as high level as this. G2 RNG,
It also didn't seem so close.
Didn't seem close,
Yeah.
but ended up then being.
Yeah,
Like,
but
the fact that there was a
but
surprise.
That's what I'm saying. Like now, you think it's close, but maybe it's not.
Yeah,
Like,
maybe it's not. Maybe it's
On
not.
Yeah.
paper, it is.
But that's why we are talking like appearances.
Yeah,
Right?
because I think when I look at these 8 teams, typically when we go into playoffs, there's like 1 or 2 teams where you just feel like, okay, these guys are gonna this team will win. This team will go to the final for sure. And yes, to me, SKT now would be favorites to do it. But I'm not convinced that SKT is just gonna like steamroll their way, other than potentially the first game.
Let me just put it on this way. Last year, there were quarterfinals that I didn't bother waking up at 7 a.m. to watch. I just didn't.
But you're talking last year. But there's been like
Yes,
5 worlds.
I know.
Martin's statement is
Yes,
about
but-
like
but
5 worlds.
But
It
like
is,
we all know that
But you're
like
just looking at
Martin.
last year.
Listen.
So-
We all know that Martin's statements are usually wrong. Or at least can't be verified.
They're provocative, you know. They get you
can't be
guys
verified
going.
as
Don't
true.
you feel it? Like
The only way that I'm
I
trying
can-
to do is I'm just trying to focus on the aspect that this quarterfinals are excited, not comparing that much. And that's why I'm using the last Worlds. That is, I'm to make the point that if this was once again on a bad time zone for Europe, except probably the SKT Splyce, where I would be down to not see it live, I would wake up at 7 a.m. to see all the other quarterfinals live.
So from a hype perspective.
Yes.
But like last year's Worlds was when we had the big meta shift and it became like super like fast games, 20-minute games, 25-minute games, tons of kills. I remember people were not sure if this was high level or not because it just became a lot of fighting. It's like really difficult to kind of watch the games the same way you watched it maybe like previous years when it became very clear who was actually like, a good team compared to not. And I think this year, all of these teams, a lot of them have now kind of embraced how to play the game in more of an aggressive way. There's not really any of the teams where you feel like, okay, these guys are going to get run over in the early game, except for maybe Splyce. But we can stop saying maybe Splyce all the time because they play SKT, who is the hardest opponent. I feel like the other games are going to be super close. Actually, now that I do mention like last year's meta and this year, Afonso, actually, if you had to describe kind of the overall way the game is being played right now, like how would you describe that in terms of compared to, let's say, like a few years ago when we had longer games and less kills and so on?
Well, there's platings and there's basically there's platings. The Herald is a lot stronger, and teams and the vision game is it's getting like weaker and weaker. So in terms of like the amount of wars you can place, so it just makes teams be very snowbally. Also, the champions are like every champion has 1 million dashes, can one shot you, and the item spikes are like really huge. So you can get rolled over quite fast. And teams are a lot better at using those vision advantages to get good fights. So what ends up happening is if one team gets ahead early game, all of the World's teams are being very good at choking the opponent out and just taking everything really fast from them and not giving them very good comeback fights.
So is mechanical skill more important now than it was in the past?
Yeah, I'd say so. It's skill for sure, but it's more decision making rather than skill, because it's about taking the right fights at the right time, and then of course performing in those fights and doing well. But like for example, TL might not be mechanically skilled, some people may think, but half of the games they lost was because they made wrong decisions, not because they were getting outplayed. And that's just the games from the games I watched, right? And for IG, it's like for example the opposite way around, where the solo laners are getting huge leads mechanically, and then some of their their jungler is making a lot of bad decision making mistakes, and that's causing them some problems. But it's not really them not using their mouse and keyboard well. Is more about the decision making. But I guess that's mechanics really. If you
It's very interesting because here in the building where we obviously have Astralis as well, I often hear from the Counter-Strike guys that in Counter-Strike, mechanical skill can save bad decisions a lot easier than in, let's say, League of Legends. In Counter-Strike, you can literally screw up the tactic, end up in a 1v1 versus 3 that is not in favor of you, but then you just land 3 quick shots and you look fantastic, but there might be someone actually saying it was the wrong decision for you to be there. Like, you didn't actually do the correct thing. And typically, in like League of Legends, if you make the wrong decision, most of the time, if you end up in a 1v2 or something, or if you end up overextending when you shouldn't, take it to tower life, you just get punished even if you are a really good player. But IG, a team like IG and some of the other teams at Worlds, I feel like they have some players who are just so good that even with a poor decision, they can actually like fight their way out of it. More like we see in a game like Counter-Strike. It's just an Astralis plug right there. But I do think actually that is the direction the game has kind of moved a little bit. But it does require absolutely world-class players in order to actually get out of some of the... You can't take a terrible decision, but to get out of some of the usually not great decisions.
I think it's more onto the fact that you are now forced to make decisions without 100% information due to the vision game being reduced, as Alfonso said, which means that you're going into some 55s, 45s which in theory can be advantage for you, but if the enemy team outplays you mechanically in these really small moments, then the mechanical part goes through. I can perfectly remember the fact, for example, one collapse on the river between G2 C9, where in theory it's a 3v2 for C9, but they are like so miscoordinated. It's not even like individual mechanics, it's just coordination of the team, that in theory the concept can be there that it can be a 3v2 for C9, but like that just 3 of them just die and they don't kill anyone. And that's a mix between, in my opinion, decision making and mechanics. But G2 gets out of there because they were clutch on their decision and their mechanics were on point to just never actually play that as a 3v2. And it was always a 2v1, then a 2v2, and then a 2v1 again.
Perfect. I mean, I think it's actually very exciting to watch in the meta now. I felt like last year's Worlds, it was too much of the mega snowball, like one team gets ahead and like game is over in 20 minutes. And I feel like I almost didn't get a game because it was over so quick. I remember some of the best of fives that ended like 3-0. It was like you barely put on the headset to start casting it, and then the game was just over. I do think now there is slightly more comeback, or at least some of the games are being drawn out just a little bit. Can you still play for late game, as in the old traditional way, where you're great at stalling the game, you have good wave clear, you can clear out enemy vision so that they have to keep putting it up again, and you can just play very defensive until you reach a certain point in the game and then you just win? Can you still play that way?
Yeah, you can, but you can't win.
You just can't win.
I mean, like, you can't play for late game for like the last thing you said, where you're gonna reach that point and then you win. No, that's not how it works anymore. Yeah. The teams that have an early game comp, if they, if you hug your tower and just, wait for late, they are going to get so much map control, and all these Worlds teams are using the map control to set up their fights so well that even if you are outscaling them, they will get a favorable position.
Right.
Like a good flank, or someone is going to get picked off. You're going to be running into skill shots while they will be dodging yours. There are a lot of these things that are going to make or break a team fight, and even though you're ahead, you're not going to be able to maybe contest Baron in your terms. Even if you're like like scaling them, you're not going to be able to contest Baron, which is like the big thing, or Elder in your terms. And then when they have the buff, even if you're outscaling, then
you're actually not outscaling them.
Yeah, they're gonna be able to win the game. So you can scale, and a lot of the good teams, SKT, Griffin, they've been able to, like, even Damwon, the Chinese teams not that much, but like for example, Rookie is pretty good at conserving his lead, and like teams are not getting snowballed all over the place. Only sometimes it happens, but usually a lot of the teams are the carries are conserving their leads and are able to stay good in farm and stuff and find a team fight at some point, which is, like Andres said, like a 45-55, maybe 40-60, and then mechanics can come into play. But this is happening more this Worlds, and I think we'll see more of that when the Korean teams play each other, if that ever happens. Yeah.
But
Fnatic is also doing that very well, and I mean G2 just got stomped the games they lost, but even when they got stomped, they were also looking for fights, favorable fights, when they were behind. So yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot more even games where the fights are gonna really matter.
So, do you have anything you want to add?
I mean, the thing about the late game is that I think that you just give up so much that the power that Drakes give you and the control that it can give you just kind of match the fact that the enemy team is outscaling you. And to be honest, nothing can outscale an Elder Drake like 3 or 4 Drakes Elder. So then there's that, and that is more about the position that you end up giving if you're never able to contest, and then you're purely actually gambling. Like we saw that one game of Fnatic where I don't remember who it was against, but I remember enemy team was scaling really well, but then Fnatic has double mountains with Cassio. Then they go on Baron, and then Baron is done in 4 seconds. And what are you gonna do now?
I mean, it actually feels like Mountain Drake is the most OP Drake now.
So you're kind of gambling, and even if they stall out that game even more, Fnatic has 4 games. They as for Drakes, they already have 2 mountains. So then they go to Elder, they do the same, and now you don't even win team fights, even if you're outscaling.
So basically, to summarize in like one quick line, current meta, offense beats defense. Like, it's better to be offensive and be good at that than be defensive and try and play to like not fall too far behind effectively.
Yeah, you always have to be proactive, even when you're behind. Otherwise, you can't compete with these teams.
Boom.
But you know, you can still scale.
Yeah, of course.
You can still scale, but
you just can't go.
It's hard.
You just can't go.
You can't go with the
can't
mindset
go
that you want to scale.
Exactly.
You can have scaling champions, but you still have to be proactive.
Yeah. So let's segue this into our first quarterfinal we want to talk about.
Last example. Just you can't go onto that meta of relic shield AD carries, and then you just FF 3 lanes, and then once your AD carry has 2 items, you win.
So can you just say offense beats defense? Great. So with that line said by Andre, let's talk about SKT versus Splyce.
Oof.
Because this is the kind of game where if we look at how Worlds is being played, how Splyce is played, you know, during this year, it feels like the quick thing to say is, oh, Splyce must get to late game in order to win. But we've just established that's, first of all, not really possible to play that way. And we don't even know if they're actually able to beat SKT in the late game. But we have seen a completely new SKT who's way more aggressive, who takes a lot more risks in the way they're like fighting, they're diving left and right. Excuse my language right there. We can beep that out probably. But they're playing super aggressive, and they're making like more of the risky plays that we've seen in the past. But those have players who mechanically can do it. Does Splyce have any chance in this series? Because they can't play for late game. We just established that.
They are playing that best of 5, so of course there's always a chance.
You don't have to be PR here.
No, it's not about being PR. It's like I mean, I don't know, like just giving you an example. My football club just lost 2-0 to a team from the 3rd division of Portugal that they probably don't even full-time work there. And they got eliminated off the cup because of that. So like the chance is always there. It's really, really minimal in my opinion, but the chance is there. The problem is that SKT is way more proactive than Splyce early on. I think that Xerxes will not be able to get any kind of leads against SKT because they get completely outshined by SKT's mid jungle duo. And even during these worlds, the whole thing of Splyce, whenever they reach 30-35 minutes, they win. It's not being true because they already
it wasn't
lost.
True in Europe either.
Yeah, but even then, like it's not like Splyce has been winning a lot of games late game as well. The games that they won in that group actually was through early game leads. So scaling is obviously not an option. In early game, I don't think that they will be able to outperform SKT in any way. So if there is a chance, super minimal, and my bet is on the 3-0 from SKT.
If you want Splyce right now, Alfonso, you're getting ready to play, you know, you face SKT, what kind of strategy or thoughts would you have in order for you and your team to win?
So I think Splyce has absolutely no chance, but the only way the thing they need to do is they need to play what they are actually good at, which is they play like a playmaking tank support or Rakan, whatever, on bot lane. AD carry, stable AD carry, tank top, as tanky as possible. And then they just like play mid jungle, whatever is good.
Yeah.
Playmaking or not, doesn't matter. They can play both styles very well. And they hope that Khan tries to play a carry.
Okay.
And he doesn't get a lead and instead falls a little bit behind, and then they win through the fact that Chachi has a tank and they don't, and then you know they win team fights and snowball through that. That's I think what I would bank on. The problem is, you know, I feel like SKT's carries are stronger, so if Khan just decides, you know, to play the tanks too and match what Splyce is doing, they will still lose. But I don't know if ego wise they will, you know, fall into that. And I think with a few bans, I mean, I don't necessarily have I didn't put too much thought into what's being banned right now at Worlds, but if they can somehow target Khan's pool and put him in like good matchups for Chachi, where he is usually playing like some of his trademark tank champions in top lane or GP or something like that, I think they have a good chance.
I mean, GP would be a big one, but I assume SKT would contest the GP / his ban.
But that's what worries me is that we also actually saw SKT playing non-traditional AD carries bot during these Worlds. So even if Khan decides to play a carry, I think that SKT is more than comfortable to actually play topside and allow their support to just roll.
I mean, that's the scary thing.
That's the best way for Splyce. Yeah, but I still think that they would lose.
Yeah, but the hope is SKT comes in with that strategy and Splyce plays their thing, and then they don't get a lead top. If anything, Chachi gets a lead, and then then Splyce has a chance. Right. But if that doesn't happen and they match each other, I feel
even if
the support jungle of SKT is just much better, and if that's better and the carries are all very, very, very strong, then there is no chance.
Do we think SKT will win Worlds?
Not necessarily. I don't.
Are they the safest bet if you have to pick one now?
Yeah, the safest bet. Yeah,
safest bet. So obviously super tough for Splyce. We do hope they can surprise us. Misfits.
But it's
a couple of years ago.
But it's really different because the level that this SKT and the previous SKT, the one that faced Misfits showed, is really, really different. I think.
And do we think are Splyce creative compared to that Misfits team who tried all the when it was Arden meta, they did the Blitzcrank, they did the Leona bots and so on?
In my opinion, creativity is gonna make them lose faster in this series.
Yeah.
Okay. So stick to standard, stick to comfort.
Stick to standard and hope they are too creative. Okay. That's what I would say. And then if they lose one game, maybe mentally speaking, they can get another win and so on.
So on that side of the bracket as well, we do have G2. Obviously, they're playing Damwon Gaming. I think G2, the first couple of games, people had the winning Worlds. It's here, look at them. They stormed Griffin in the first game they played against them. I think now when the group is over, they got second seed. Oof. People look at the last two games as being very one-sided games for Griffin, and not just one. It was two in a row, obviously, because they got to play the tiebreaker. And Damwon Gaming ended up getting first in their group and actually looking a lot better than they did in play-ins. They used the play-ins then to get ready for this specific matchup. I know they've been scrim partners as well. Like people were talking about that. Like, are G2 are they favorites? Probably not.
I think it's quite even. Yeah. Honestly,
it might be the closest one.
But that's the thing. You look at that, and then honestly, that is really close. IG Griffin I also think is really close, and Fnatic FPS maybe.
So how did G2 lose these games against Griffin? Like, what is it that happens for G2 when they suddenly lose in a very convincing fashion after looking so dominant in a lot of games this year?
Griffin's support jungle was very, just much better coordinated, and I think G2's support jungle didn't really. Mm-hmm. I feel like the laners didn't really work. Like not just to blame the support, but just the laners in general were not super coordinated with jungle, whereas Griffin. Their jungle where their jungler path the laners worked towards, and they seemed like a more well-oiled machine. And drafts also, I feel like they got quite outplayed in draft in the sense that Griffin knew how to play with and against Kiana, and I feel like G2 didn't really. It seemed like, I don't want to say that they don't know how to play or play that champion because
it's been a struggle, yeah.
But it seemed like that was the case, that they were like Kiana was, I would ban Kiana if I was playing a game 5, like a game 3 against Griffin in that kind of 0-2 series that they had. So I feel like that was like the biggest key, and I think they will learn a lot from that because G2 didn't really change the draft from the first week, and I feel like Griffin came in with a totally different. Idea for
I think draft had a lot to do, and that's why it's hard to see if G2 is favorite or not. That's why I also consider it's even, just because G2 has been so used to getting away with worse drafts sometimes purely because of the ability that they have. But when they meet a team that can match them individually in level, and they just got a better draft, and it becomes really hard. So G2 Damwon, to be honest, I think that draft will have a really big impact. I think that's why the series is even. To being the series that even, then it's actually most likely that Damwon has a bit of an edge.
Okay.
Purely because they have side selection.
I think G2 is a lot better in best of 5s.
Yeah.
Than best of 1s.
Is that due to adaptation between games, or is it large champ
preparation before games
and prep before the game?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. You don't think Damwon, a Korean team, will be able to match that, or?
Yeah. I mean, I think Damwon is good. I'm not saying they're not. I just think G2 showing will be a lot different to the showing they had in week 2, just simply because of the preparation. They are a very good team when it comes to preparing for a best of 5.
Okay. It's very interesting because actually when they played the 2 best of 5s against Fnatic in the summer split here, you know, they had the first one where Fnatic won the first 2 games quite easily, right? And then G2 came back and evened out and won the series, and then in the final we had another 5-game series.
I think they did not prepare well for that, yeah. But I think just Fnatic prepared
better than G2.
Yeah, because G2 thought Fnatic was going to play the same, and then Fnatic came with
different things,
different picks, trying to shut down Hylissang, and then he's playing Leona and whatever, and still winning lane, you know, Shen, Leona. When the first week it was about like Twisted Fate and Pyke and
G2
stuff.
do not like playing in Shen, man, because it seems like in G2, in Europe, when you watch a lot of G2 games, it mainly from watching from our games, and I'm interested in hearing how you guys feel about that, but it feels very often that G2 are super good at picking, like when they pick a skirmish, typically they have someone else joining that fight like a second or 2 faster than the other team. So like you think it's a 2v2 when it starts, but then Mickey's 1 second ahead of your support, he will show up first and he will land some sort of CC and boom, they secure kill, or he forces our 2v2 guys to start running away because they know he's coming first and the support is calling, he's going to beat me to it. But Griffin actually did the exact same to G2 every single fight. Because I went back and rewatched the games as well. Like, you always have Griffin members moving first. You always have Griffin members showing up to the skirmish that's just about to happen. So G2 has to either run out or they have to risk taking the fight with like a timer on it, saying basically like you have like 3 seconds to kill this guy, or there's 2 more people showing up. And especially Shen keeps doing it to them, and Fnatic did the same. So it might be one of the picks to look for in the series, because that's one thing G2 has done really well. But I guess predictions for that game, we all know SKT predictions with 3-0s, but Damwon G2.
I think I'm gonna, as I did, I predicted G2 out of pride, a 3-2 for G2. But deep inside, if I'm
give me the non-pride prediction.
Then I think Damwon will win the series 3-1.
3-1.
I think 3-2 G2.
3-2 G2.
No.
So he's taking my biased vote.
And we're mainly looking at draft and then jungle supports.
Top, I think.
Top.
Yeah, I don't think jungle support is gonna be. If anything, I feel like even G2's jungle support is gonna be might be even stronger coming into the series. With how stomped they got last week.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
I think G2 is gonna work like is gonna be a different team, but the top lane, not that Wunder is bad or anything, it's just the top lane champion pool and like all these Vladimirs and stuff showing up. I want to see how G2 deals with that, because Damwon is a very top side center team, and
definitely soul lane focused for sure.
And we will see how they how the top lane scaling and like the matchups and the jungle top synergy and supports roaming and going for Herald at 10 minutes, how that whole
because
process.
I actually think that the bot side for G2, they have a lot more tools to use bot side, and I think Mickey, when he actually has a good early game, can do what Hylissang is doing as well. And I don't see that from Damwon almost ever. They are very much a soul laner, an amazing jungler. Let's make stuff happen, and then we can go save these guys down here if they're struggling.
But is that what has been happening? Because they have not been losing bot.
No, they've been actually just going like at the worst case, they've just been going even.
Yeah, and it's not like there are like that bad of bot lanes in that group. Liquid bot lane is not bad. IG bot lane is not bad, and they actually destroyed IG bot lane in one of these games.
So that's one of the big ones for me. I think G2 needs to get an edge there if they want to win the series.
I think so too, but I think that like this Damwon bot lane has been their, like one thing is to be their weaker point. Another thing is that that weaker point being just weak.
Or a problem, basically.
Yeah, or a problem, which I don't think it has been, honestly. And excited, I'm actually, the matchup that I'm most excited about is actually Showmaker versus Caps. I think that's going to be super, super intense and will define actually the top matchup that you were talking about.
So basically, we actually have every single role being exciting in this matchup.
I think it's a super exciting quarterfinals.
That's great. Good. We wrapped up one side. This was actually supposed... We removed the guest to try and make it a shorter episode.
We removed
It's going to be a 30-minute, I was told. 30 minutes.
I wanted to make it a 30-minute episode. We had a great start, though, discussing a lot of cool things. And then, obviously,
usually
the
when
meta...
it takes longer, he says actually like...
Yeah, it's the host, he's not leaving well. Pretty sure.
I feel like I'm leading actually okay. You know, it is a problem, though, when the host likes to talk as well. That is a bit of a problem. So I do apologize for that.
We should get chokes.
Yes, she would definitely do a better job than I'm doing. Let's try and move on to the next two quarterfinals. And if we go long, we go long. You know, at this point, screw it, we're doing it live. It happens. Griffin, IG. It's actually the first quarterfinal we get to watch. So this is the most relevant thing to discuss right now.
Griffin 3-1.
3-1?
IG 3-2.
You got IG over Griffin?
Yeah.
I actually think Griffin looked the best in week 2 at least, out of like any team.
I think so too.
I love the story of
Yes,
like
I
all the
think so
issues they had, and then like, you
Yes.
know,
I
they
agree.
make changes, and then boom, they
Yes.
smack G2 twice. But you believe IG will beat them?
No, I think...
You just said IG will win.
Yes, but I don't think IG will beat them. I think Griffin will lose to IG. It's different.
So it's the best of 5 thing.
It's the best of 5 thing that this guy, since they joined to LCK, they lost 4 best of 5s. They only won best of 5 against Africa. And I just don't believe them in best of 5s, even though...
Never make predictions based on
Yeah, but I am.
mental.
I am. That's
You're
what
not
I'm...
in their head.
That's what I'm going with. So I'm going that IG wins because Griffin will choke once again on a best of 5.
So let's pretend they don't choke. Alfonso's right.
Then Alfonso's right.
And they win. What do we love about Griffin here?
They're a very systematic team, and they're solo laners, and like just every lane actually is very stable. They're
slightly closer to me. I just don't want to
Okay.
have more comments about that.
So all their laners are very stable, and they're a team that is like very controlled, plays very well around their support in jungle, and I think that's going to break IG, because IG is all about the solo lanes and getting lane advantages, and their jungler has been running it down quite a bit. So
Both of them.
both of them, yeah.
Both of them.
So I feel like what we're going to see is we're going to see IG getting slight lane leads and then just losing to the controlled systematic style that Griffin has, which is still aggressive. It's just about, you know, making, like, not really taking too many risks and just making the right play at the right time, and still proactively, but, you know.
You put the enemy team in a situation where it's not a 50-50 for them. It becomes
Exactly.
a 40% or 30% chance,
Yeah.
and you have a 60 or 70.
Yeah, and they're going to play very well around their jungle and just, like, team play-wise, and I feel like they might lose 1 or 2 games to, I predicted 1 game, but they might be 2, to IG just getting uncontrollable leads in lane. But if that doesn't happen, it's going to be a Griffin win.
Very interesting, because IG obviously came in as a 2nd seed last year too. When they lost to Fnatic, you know, twice, lost a tiebreak against Fnatic, and people were actually saying kind of the same, but like, yeah, you know, yes, they can get some individual leads, but as a team, you know, they're gonna end up losing, and they too many of their players are making like bad moves. Very inconsistent jungler was actually also one of the big points back then, and then a lot of people looking at the bot lane who had great games and then terrible games.
Yeah.
That's the thing that scares me about IG going into this kind of game. I know the summer split has been a lot worse than it was last year, but they're still the kind of team, you know, when it clicks, then they just have some of the most insane players. Even like Jakulov can like win your games, you know?
No, they will win if they are able to beat IG as a team. Like if they're able to match IG as a team, I mean Griffin.
Yes.
They will absolutely win the series. I just think Griffin, judging from week 2, are the strongest team right now in terms of team play. Better than SKT.
Yeah, but I agree with this.
You just have the BO5
I just have the thought that they will not perform well on a BO5. And this is the only thing that I'm basing this prediction.
But
which means that it's likely that it will just go wrong.
Alfonso, you gone from BO1s to BO5. You played big BO5s both back in Europe. You played them internationally. You played a couple in North America. Like, what could possibly change, ignoring in-game, but just purely as a player, going into an important best of 5? Is it nerves? Is it that you can't handle the pressure? Like, what can it be?
I don't know. I mean, I think everyone handles it differently. So for me, the first game, I'm just chilling. So usually I go in, my team has a plan. You know, we kind of think they of their plan. I just go in, I just chill, play my first game, kind of get a feeling for how they play. Don't really sweat it too much, and it mostly comes down to the second game that really makes or break the series. If you win that second game, then you get like a good series. People can start adapting on each other, and if you go 0-2 or 2-0, then that's like the momentum shift where, you know, it just really depends on like the team, the moment, the atmosphere.
And you don't get more nervous in a best of 5 compared to a normal.
I feel like I'm the most nervous in game 1.
Okay, so game 1.
Yeah, but game 5 is usually the easiest game for me. Like the feel the best.
But I think the Griffin way just comes down to preparation. That's why, like, maybe with the coaching staff changes that can change. But Griffin was always a team, and we saw it especially on that Thalia series against SKT. That
the Thalia Pantheon.
Yeah, that when they prepare a week, they prepare like that comp or that cheese or that new pick or whatever the whole week, and then they go into a best of 3 series. And they have 1, maximum 2 strategies that they've been spamming the whole week. But when they go into a best of 5, I just think that maybe they just get a bit scared or something. That once they pull that off and the enemy team bans it, then they will not be able to pull out another strategy. So then they start experimenting a bit more. This is just me guessing. Obviously, I don't know. So they just start to experiment a bit more during that week of practice, and then it just becomes harder, or at least making this everything that Alfonso just explained about Griffin harder to practice. And I think that that's part of the reason why they were not succeeding in best of 5s. But at the same time, they changed coaching staff. Maybe they have different philosophy in there. They actually showed during their week 2 different play styles, and it was not always the same. So.
I mean,
maybe I'm wrong, but I'm still going with it.
One of the big things I remember with Griffin was like they got to the final in the LCK by playing super well, you know, around late game or in the late game. They're really good at getting to late game without taking big chances, and they were kind of like stopping the enemy team from snowballing effectively. Then they go into the final and they do the Pantheon Thalia thing, which is pure early game, you know, try and hard camp bot late and try and snowball the game that way, and then just showed they couldn't play that at all. And it like did it twice in a row, and it just fell flat completely. And they ended up losing the series. So I'm interested in seeing that. I do think Griffin has played a lot better early, just like SKT have done, than we've maybe seen in the past from these teams. So that does set them up, I guess, a bit better to actually beat IG. They don't have to make a huge meta shift as a team going into this series. I think that one might be just as close as Damwon versus G2. It's kind of the 2 really close ones. If you are a biased EU fanboy, because the last series is Fnatic versus FPX. I'm sure we've only gone like 25 minutes now, so we got 5 minutes left roughly to hit the 30 that I promised you guys.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's been 25. I've been noticing I've been looking at the clock. Otherwise, we have to just cut out a bunch of stuff. Fnatic FPX.
What?
Look at the time.
Yeah.
Oh god.
It's been 25 minutes.
All
right, we'll cut out every time Andre talks, and then it will be 25 minutes. FPX versus Fnatic. Anyone got Fnatic winning?
Yes, me.
Yes.
3-1 Fnatic.
3-1 Fnatic. Give me some good reasons.
FPX played bad during groups.
Okay.
And Fnatic showed really good performances on week 2.
Okay. So you're going with based on recent performance?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Fnatic is also a very strong best of 5 team. I think European teams in general are actually pretty good in BO5s.
Okay.
Who's the big favorites for best of 5s?
Who's going to be the Fnatic MVP in the best of 5?
Well,
Healy.
Yeah, either Healy or Nemesis usually, no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking at.
I mean, against FPX, actually, Reckless could get it now that he's playing AD carries. I could see that one. But I also think that usually if Reckless is considered an MVP voter for a series, it's because Healy did a hell of a job.
Yeah.
So Healy would probably get it in that case.
If he gets it, it's just fan votes.
Yeah.
I mean, he might win the fan vote. There's definitely a chance for that. No concerns around FPX, you know, jungle support plus mid lane who plays all these like roaming picks, trying to punish Fnatic for playing aggressive in the early game. No concerns around that at all?
No. I think Fnatic being one of the best teams playing roaming themselves, know how to match and how to respect it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it won't be an issue.
Yeah, I agree. I think it won't be an issue at all, and I'm excited to see what Bwipo plays top in the series and how they what kind of draft strategy they come into the series with, because I think
I hope he plays tanks.
As of
Shen,
now,
GP is what he's been playing the most.
I expect Fnatic to be the most creative team of this World Championship.
Picks or in game?
Picks. Picks and in game, but mostly picks, right? Yeah, I think they're gonna play the most off worlds meta picks.
Interesting.
In the whole world.
Actually,
because they've actually not played that many different things far.
Yeah, but
the Morgana bot and stuff.
That's my statement.
But that's where I might disagree, because it's like Fnatic came with that mindset to Worlds, only team playing Garen Yumi, playing Morgana bot.
They weren't the only team.
They were practically the only team.
I mean, we had some of the Korean teams played it as well.
We had another Korean team play Garen, but none of them were playing Morgana bot. Then
Morgana bot definitely. Yeah.
So their creativity was mostly around bot, and then they go into the second week and they're Hildy on a roaming support, on a playmaker, Reckless on an AD carry, Nemesis having priority in draft and has a counter pick, and the only thing that he plays that no one else seems to be playing now, it's Veigar. So the standard started working for them on week 2.
But who's played Casio? Who's played Shen? Who's played Pyke? Just them.
Okay.
I mean, we've seen Shen flex.
Who plays TF?
Shen has been flexed. TF is a good one.
TF a lot of people play.
Faker played it as well.
Yeah, it has been.
Faker played TF. Even he played TF as well.
AP, I mean,
full AP.
Yeah, AP with Klepto.
We've seen some Shens.
I think maybe it was first time.
We've definitely seen some Shens.
No
one has played Rengar top yet, so maybe that might be it.
No, I mean, I can. What I'm trying to say is that I see, and Casio has also been a bit played.
Yeah, Casio's been played.
But I can see Nemesis bringing different picks because he's starting to have priority in draft. But I think that if I'm Fnatic, I would probably decide to let's stick to this just right here, where he has the freedom in draft. But Bwipo, you're playing your GP or your Shen, and you guys are playing this normal AD carry, roaming playmaker support. Maybe it's different than most of the teams of Worlds. I just don't think it's going to be different from the usual Fnatic that we have been seeing.
Yeah, but that's still going to be different.
They will definitely get First Blood level 1 in the first game.
Yeah.
They always have something there.
And
that will definitely happen. Perfect.
I mean, unless enemy team is playing Blitzcrank and hooks Cyan and we still kill Cyan. Let's go.
Okay, there's one chance. There's one chance. So basically that wraps up the episode and all the quarterfinals. So just to summarize, G2 versus Damwon Gaming, we had G2 advancing from both. Well, you mainly because of the hope/bias.
No, he said Damwon.
No, I said Damwon. If it's not, if I'm not being biased, then I think.
All right, let's do Damwon and a G2 then. SKT Splyce. Everyone obviously had SKT. Griffin versus IG. We had IG and we had Griffin. And the last one, both of them predicted Fnatic. You can see all our predictions on the social media channels of Origen.
But mine will be different than the ones I said here.
We will be doing... Why would you not have the same? Anyway.
Because I want to be biased on the predictions.
Okay. We will, for playoffs, we will have 1 point for predicting the winner. And you get 2 extra points if you nail the game score as well. So that I can get back in the race and obviously try and win the whole thing.
Didn't you start the episode referring that we were doing really bad on predictions, me and Alfonso?
I think all of us together
have
done very poorly. We didn't do the first 2 days, to be fair, so we lost out on potentially a lot of points. But let's wrap it up here. It was about 30 minutes long. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you guys for being part of the podcast today.
Yeah. Awesome.